Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's June 1, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant, his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Please subscribe. It's an honor and a pleasure today to be here with Erica Sheu. Is that correct, Erica, how I pronounce it?
Or Erica Sheu,
Thank you. Where are you calling from?
Los Angeles, California.
The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Well, I give it a thought after listening to a couple of other episodes, and I want to go with the best thing of human beings is you're able to think about what's I'm probably wrong about everything.
That is the best answer I've ever had. That you're able to think about the title of this podcast.
Yeah.
But suss that out a little. What does that mean to you?
Well, like you are able to reflect and do complicated thinkings.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then even like interpret language in a lot of multiple different ways.
Yeah. That's really good. I'm glad it's already we're off to having a good time. That's what this is, to have fun. So what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Well, I think first of all, I want a condition that it's like safe and kind,
Yeah.
and like how I like to experience it, like being there and seeing how people do things, or being there and understanding something. So experience, feeling, or understanding from I don't visual or other sensory too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's we call that direct experience sometime, but you sussed it out well. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
To navigate life.
Yeah. And is this need or want
I think
more? Is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I think it is innate,
Yeah.
but I do feel I think it's innate, but I do feel there's some form of it was being invented partly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these where I go, is it more this or more that? Of course, it's both and it depends, but
Sure.
it's just prompts to talk. So, do thoughts, no, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
I don't know what I think until I understand it.
understand it. That's a great word. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Right.
That's a main aspiration for me, is understanding.
But I do feel like though writing though can be another form of performance, no? Like from your training and like from your understanding of writing, and then the way you write about your thinking probably is like can be detoured in a way, no?
Can be a detour. Yeah. Very good. Yes. Do thoughts create emotions?
The styles create emotion. The styles can kind of influence emotion, but I want to say, well, so I learned from like I don't know if you're familiar with cognitive like behavior therapy, and I
Yeah.
think the main thing about the cognitive behavior activities was like it's emotion, feeling, and thoughts, and you can't really change your emotion because it's kind of it's kind of how we're as a human. That's part of us. So, but then you can change your thoughts about you can change your thoughts. So it's like emotion trigger thoughts, but then you can change your thoughts that how do you react to your emotion that's behave, and then that's when you value if the behavior is like if it is effective or not. So does thoughts affect emotion? I want to say maybe thoughts will come from emotion, and then you decided what kind of thought you're going to go with.
Yeah. Well, I like that because it's me and you versus the wording on the question. So I'm for people changing the verb. Like, do thoughts create emotion? You
Oh,
say, do they influence emotion? That's what it's more me and you building a bigger picture for the questions and the wording. So that was really good. I like that. Can humans think without language?
yes.
Chomsky says that language is not just words, it's a culture, it's a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
When language breaks down, probably like a lot of physical, like emotional, like reactions. Like I guess like people like storm out of the room or like people like walked away. It's an expression of they can't communicate with language, so they have to do it in a physical way.
To walk out of the room. But is that the practice you do? If you have a communication breakdown, say at work, what do you do?
I probably sometimes or like withdraw, like you just like, okay, turn around. We do like though in my office, like people do walk out of the room to avoid conflict because
no, that's an interesting solution. Walk out of the room. Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think we're more feeling being, but then you can control your thinking.
Yeah. Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. And I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? Or like people who meditate, people who meditate, they go, okay, now think about not thinking. But there's a bumper sticker on a car in my street and it says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, I said, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
Well, that's true. That's true because there's always you need like reality check on things because something you're feeling probably based on your past experience and may lead you to like, I don't know, thinking some distortion of thinking that you're believing something that is not a fact. So
yeah. Very good. These are two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One is thinking a function of the soul.
Is thinking the function of the soul? I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And again, that's fine. I'm for saying, I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't answer that question. That's all totally valid. And I'm for stories, anecdotes, tangents. So very good. So the second Turing question is, can machines think?
I think okay. I think machine can process.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if when we talk about thinking, it's also about processing. If thinking is processing, then machine can think.
Yeah. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Meaning.
Yeah. I got it from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says, happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning tends to last. Would you agree with him or not?
I don't think it's a binary thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there are meaningful things that it's happiness that can last. Right. I feel like maybe as long as you learn something or something changed from something that's meaningful, and then that could be happy or sad and then that lasts. So yeah, so meaning can last, happiness can last if it's meaningful.
Yeah. Wow. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we more so creating it?
Does tension create? I think brain create conscious.
The brain does create consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
I don't know. I don't have scientific.
What's your guess? What's your guess or hunch?
Okay, let's think of a situation if like something's flying to you in a light speed, and then you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna dodge it, but then can you dodge it? We probably cannot.
Yeah.
So maybe light is faster if it comes from this like naive point of view.
Naive point of view. I love that. Beautiful. Very good. I'm glad you're laughing. That's what we're here for, fun. Okay, so Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house, using the master's tools.
Hmm.
But her colleague Yvonne Rayner said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
What new tool do I suggest to destroy the master's house?
Well, that's the thing. You put it in the context you want. I
Okay.
open some of these questions with cute quotes. It doesn't mean you have to apply it. The basic of my question is, what tool do you most gravitate towards? You can apply the word new if you want, and you can apply the quote dismantling the master's house if you want.
What new tool do I? Mm, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question.
But in general, in all your creativeness and your work and your play, what tool do you most gravitate to? It doesn't have to be tangible.
Right. What tool do I mostly grab to? It's my fast thinking thoughts that I would grab them. And
Fast thinking. Yeah, that's good. Well, rarely do people put the adjective fast in front of thinking.
right?
Is
No?
is this something? Is this yeah? Is that what's called intuition, like your first thought, best thought, or you? What is fast thinking? How do you suss that out?
Fast thinking is like it's like a lot of them that coming to you at a very fast, as if how maybe a human can take or can document it. I feel like fast sort of imply a little overwhelming in a way that it's like it's passing through very quickly,
Yeah,
and then you don't really have time to process it or notice it.
right. And then the second follow up is, what toy do you gravitate towards, or what new toy do you like or use?
What toy? I want to say pencil and paper.
Oh my God, that's my favorite, pencil and paper.
Right, I'm constantly writing and drawing things and making little books.
Yeah, that is old school for someone your age. Is that unusual? Do you find people your age doing that or not?
People my age, I don't. Not a lot of. I feel like a lot of my artist friends around me would like use iPad to draw and stuff. But
Yeah,
I do think I do have some friends that still like draw with like ballpoint pen and the paper constantly. So.
yeah, very good. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
My performance, if I can reach expectation of others and myself,
Wow.
and being lonely, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're
Mhm.
broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we
Mhm.
might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions.
Mhm.
So, Eric, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Well, at first, I think inventions are made for like convenience,
Yeah.
and I think human, we generally don't like pain. We don't like to suffer, and if someone's telling you, okay, that invention is bad for somehow, but then if you don't have this invention, you're gonna make your life a little like inconvenience. And usually, like it's naturally or normal that I feel like people would be like, oh no, I'm gonna stay with the convenience, so I'm not doing the inconvenient way to listen to. I'm just gonna ignore what harmful this invention is. That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
That's good. Do artists have moral obligation?
I do think artists have more obligation. Yes.
Yeah. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm more afraid of old ideas because old ideas sometimes it's like legacy, and then you kind of like it's uninspiring in a way that like it's on a pedestal and it's unshakable, and then so it's like okay, the younger generation will do something that they're experience something they're extremely like joy, But then someone would come there and say, oh, someone did this already, it's from an old idea, and then you just take away that joy. I feel like I feel like my generation, that's in kind of the information bombarded situation. I think this sometimes it can be disencouraged for some younger generation that way. So I'm more scared of that.
Wow, that's heavy because I wanted to say this a second ago, but now maybe it's more appropriate. Have you ever heard of TSA? It's tactile situation awareness. So when the army dude's in the airplane, the bomber, and his plane gets hit, he can't study all the gauges on his plane. He's got to act immediately to try to save his life. And my friend says that's similar to people your generation. They're looking at an iPhone, an iPad, a TV screen. They're looking at many sources, and they know how to not identify with one. Whereas my generation, we were raised with the transistor radio, so we became that oriented, or a home telephone line, like one thing at a time, kind of. And so TSA is sort of what your generation is more. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm just asking your reaction, that you don't relate to just one input. Like you said, oh, I like pencil and paper, but you also probably have a cell phone, and you're able to look at many screens at once in your job too.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that is you're not relating, so you're getting the bigger picture and more comprehensive?
I don't think it's I don't think it's necessarily more comprehensive. Like if you're overwhelmed, you can shut down and you're just not getting all this. You're just not getting any information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think necessarily more comprehensive. It's more like we have to train our brain to be more selective.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what my friend was saying. You've trained your brain to be more selective on the spot. It's
Right.
not like, yeah. So yeah, there's actually a question coming up that we'll get into that deeper. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
Right. Maybe around I was 3 or 4, and one of them was we were in the snow. My dad was driving his Honda at the time. This is in like 95, 96, and I want to bring a snowball under a car, and I remember in the back seat, and my parents were like, no, don't bring this on the car.
That's great. Is is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
I think it's a blessing because
Yeah.
it gives you clues to see your past
Yeah.
and your family's history past
Yeah.
too.
It's important. Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, my mom, she's constantly reading, constantly learning, and constantly very engaging her hobby while still like working her day job. Although she's gonna retire in 2 years, but she has a very enriched life. Like I think.
Beautiful. And same question outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, and what was that impact?
Mm, I would say I just got a text from her, but I want to say one of my mentor, foreign arts, Betsy Bomber. I think she it's a lot of recognition, or like love and teaching and love in the film media, and that is all like uncompromising, and very independent, strong, and show you that yes, you can do this thing too, and the very yeah, and so that's something that really gave me confidence in, or I kind of like I'm still apparently still doing my experimental filmmakers practice. on top of like having a day job, and I was still, engage in community teaching and then hosting screenings things. And I think, that's kind of inspired by her too. Like she had a great professional career in industry as as optical effect manager, and then so I think that's something that grounds me, like her as a role model.
Yeah, that's good. I asked Betsy all these questions once too. She is a remarkable filmmaker. Great mentor you found there. Beautiful.
Yeah, she is.
So did your parents raise you a particular religion?
No. But we do have, it's kind of like some uninevitable like local culture. I grew up in Taiwan most of my life, and like local deities and things that you would believe in, like this god that's in charge of all the ghosts. So you're like, whenever you pass by the temple, you were like pray to say thank you for protecting me. But I'm not, we don't practice that day to day, but it's more in the cultural context of daily life that kind of integrate into daily life.
Right. Do you pray?
I don't.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Great job.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Do evil people exist? I want to say evil people. I think evil use people as a vehicle.
Yeah, the hidden question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the Mob and the Samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. Basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I totally agree with that. I think it's like, I think if you give your enemy attention, you are interacting with them, and you are triggering whatever they do to you that's harmful to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But say a friend is being bullied and they go, what should I do? What would you say?
If a friend is being bullied, I would probably like ask them how much they have to interact with this person.
Yeah.
It's like a work situation and then you still need that job, and this person's not going away, and then we'll be like, okay, and then we'll probably some strategy to avoid this person.
Yeah.
And if it's like a situation where you can leave, or there's some action can taken that could like take the bully away, or like keep some distance, and I will encourage them to do so.
Yeah. Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. But Gregory Bateson says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, wow, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. The basic question is, does punishment work?
The punishment work. I don't know. Recently, I saw somebody doing like workshop on bashing punishment. So I'm curious of that workshop. I might take it, but this punishment work. I feel like I grew up among a lot of punishment. I grew up like experienced a lot of punishment. I feel like I am probably the last generation of will still get like hit on your hand if you're not getting a good grade. Like that's why I still got it like during my middle school. But I don't think it works, because I just feel more shameful of my bad grade, and it's not encouraged me to study more.
Wow. And they actually hit you with a ruler or something?
Right. It's like, yeah, it's a little like hand shape, like I don't know, like whip that it had you hit
Right.
your hand. I still had that till my middle school. And
Wow.
yeah.
Thank you for telling me about that. So James Joyce was the first projectionist at a movie theater in Dublin 100 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, he basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside? Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Do you mind I've detoured a little bit because it's amazing because I studied English literature when I was in college in Taiwan, and we read, of course, we read Dublin, and then I think like I was just a freshman, and then like English is my second language, and we're reading James Joyce, The Bazaar, the short one with the
The,
market, and then huh?
you mean the short stories,
Yes,
Dubliners? Yeah.
yes, yeah, and then so I don't remember exactly what happened in that story, but then I think it's a little boy go to a market and then was excited, and then turned out it's not what I expected, and then my professor was like, so this is disillusion. So it's like imagine me like 18 years old reading like James Joyce and then thinking about disillusion, and then learning right now, like I'm 32, learning how he's like, I don't want disillusion. I don't want disillusion in movie theater. It's like okay.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a funny, um, it, uh, ironic statement that I'm saying, because it's really Joyce wrote books. What's the difference? You're creating a different experience, but it's sort of like more on the Faulkner quote that fiction might be more powerful than journalism. So you make abstract films, or you make, experimental films, and is that why do you have to do that as opposed to making a documentary or doing your straight job? So you're able to juggle between the two. But I mean, the world you're in is something I've studied for 5 decades, experimental film. It's so different. But it is in the world James Joyce was in, was interesting because he was a normal writer in a way, and then he went very experimental, because Finnegan's Wake is an experimental film disguised as a book. But it's just sort of, I mean, it's a cute way of saying, why do we have to recreate anything? I mean, that's the bottom line question, is why do we have to recreate things?
I think it's for fiction or like experimental film, I think it's you're amplifying a certain sensations that is you kind of extract it and amplify a certain sensation from reality that maybe you just you walk on the street and then you're just thinking you're walking to your destination, but then in fiction and or abstract artwork, I'm amplifying this this so this like silver lining of the leaf, it's like backlight from the sunshine. I'm like, and
Yeah.
then I'm like putting my emotion on it actually, and then it links to what I'm thinking on my my trip, on my walk to my destination. So
Yeah.
we recreated to, I feel like it's kind of like pickled it or preserve it or
To pickle it or preserve. Those are good words. Pickle or preserve. Yeah.
yeah, and then we you I feel like it's start how do you say like cathartic.
Cathartic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Because a guy who graduated from Cal Arts, Mike Kelly, said, art is making your problems other people's problems.
It's so true. I agree. I do agree because honestly, like I feel like a lot of artists is like especially we're talking about like those artists that do things very intuitively, and you're not really processing it. You're like you're a receive and you send out, and then the audience are become the processing machine for you because I'm here to enjoy art, I'm here to understand you, and then you're actually processing for me, which is something that's really interesting of internet culture because people would put like reviews for your film, online, and I read them all the time. I always dig them out and read them all the time and be like, okay, this is a good way to like talk about my film, because I actually don't understand my feelings
Yeah.
when I'm making it.
No, that's really good. That's a really good trait as an artist to understand. Not ignore reviews, but process them and realize this is another point of view. Because once you make your art, it's no longer yours. It's theirs. They can do whatever they want with it.
That's true.
But that's leads me perfectly, Erica. Where's your tipping point to be an experimental filmmaker? What did you study in high school, in college, and then where's this tipping point you learn what experimental film is and you go, oh, that's what I want to do?
Well, so in high school, my school sometimes invite like guest artists in, and one of the big artists that like really like I think it's a tip point. It's like Tsai Ming-liang actually came to my school, and he's showing his like first feature film, made 93, called Rebels of the Neon God. And that's something that and like, because in the auditorium, like most of my time films are really slow. It's really not appealing for high school students that are not familiar with this work, or with the kind of work that is like at the end of like, let's say, okay, this class is like from 4 to 5 in the auditorium. So a lot of students, and we were in a boarding school, we have full day of schedule. So a lot of students take this class, as like this is the time I rest. So they're not interested in like slow cinema, I guess. But for me, it was like wide opening of like, oh my God, it's like a long shot, and you'll be feeling all the sensation, you feel the loneliness of city. And anyway, you feel like the tension between characters, even though with like little lines between them. And then a director came and know that a lot of people were like asleep, and he actually talked about how like how everybody perceiving is different, and when you don't understand something doesn't mean that nobody understand it. And for me, that's like that touch me and be like, yes, like this is like something in abstract is something that somebody that actually understand. I'm your audience, that I understand you. So that's something that kind of like inspire me in a way, like seeing an artist talk about their work. So that's high school.
Yeah, let's go back for a second.
Oh yeah.
The maker of Rebels of a Young God, how do you spell his name?
Tsai Ming-liang, Tsai, Tsai.
Yeah, and that's very good. So you saw that was a feature film or a short?
That was a feature film, made in 1950, Rebel of the Neon God.
Of the
so
Neon
I
God.
watched it. Yeah, I watched it 16 or 17. Yeah.
So are you watching normal movies then, like Hollywood and TV, or being raised in Taiwan, are you getting Western culture, or are you just watching movies from your country?
No, we get a lot of Western culture because of Hollywood and Hollywood. And my mom is really a cinephile. She watches everything, and I'll follow her to. And I'm very young age, I follow her to theater for like European independent film that was important to Taiwan, and like Japanese or American cinema. And
So
then, but also
you
French
learned,
film.
in other words, you learned art cinema. You learned what art films were besides Hollywood films.
Right, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
but then where did you go? Well, I want to do that. Where was it in high school and college? Are you going, okay, I want to learn how to make films? Where's the tipping point? Say that's my calling.
With my calling of making film, I think it's something very intuitively. First, like camera is something that's really like familiar, present in my life because my mom, she's always doing photography, and so it's really natural of capturing something. And I think there might be some point that I realizing that I'm not. I think definitely one of the documentary called Let the Wind Carry Me. It's a documentary about the cinematographer Li Pingbing, who or people, I think he go by Mark Lee in the Western context, but he's the cinematographer for famous Taiwanese director Ho Xiaoxian. I watched that documentary, and it was like there's like one shot of he would just take his point of shoot camera and then look at the leaf dancing, and then he's capturing with like extreme joy. And I think that's something probably would like inspire me. I'll be like, okay, I realize like still photography doesn't serve me, but I'm curious of the gaze, but then also with that movement. So, but it just naturally happened. Like in college, I in college um I chose an English literature program with media studies, and I'm a lousy literature student. I've been making film um with my cohort, and I think that's when I learned filmmaking the thing. But then I did make an experimental film of like really abstract, like underground with a flower close up in COVID-19, because we were 19 years old at the time, and nobody understood it at the time. And then it's really until I moved to New York, and I took experimental film classes, and then everybody was like, "Whoa, oh my God, like you should keep making film," and realize, oh my God, actually people understand this intuitive language.
Your vision, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because a screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker.
Mm-hmm.
When you're making one of your short films, on your website, people can watch, maybe 8 clips from various of your films. When you're making any of those films, what role did intention play in your creative process?
Intention. Intention is really important. Yeah. I feel like though, when you're behind camera, when I'm behind camera, I'm very particular about details of thing, even a little tilt of my lens, or a little deciding a very subtle movement that you can even barely feel. Those were all I decided, and those are all like intention to reach a certain kind of feeling that you might not even notice. So
No, I noticed there was a little jiggly kid, and I love it. I was like, she left that in. That's like I felt so much because I've went to the. Have you entered Ann Arbor Film Festival?
Oh, I never played them before.
You never entered?
I did submit, but I never was
Got
played
in?
at Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways, I went, it's over 60 years old. I went to 30 years of experimental film every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was seeing your films was like a
There's,
taking me back in time when we used to see great experimental films like that. Now everything is so slick. Everything now is, what happens is the film students become clones of their teachers.
yeah,
And
that's really sad.
yeah,
Sorry.
no,
Yeah,
it is.
that
But
is
how
really
much
sad.
are you thinking of your viewer? Like Duchamp said, there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your viewer when you're making your film?
How much do I think of it? It depends on different things that I make. If I sometimes there's something that I like for like yeah, it's really depend on different project, but I want to say I do think of viewer when I feel something is playful and interactive in a way. So that's what I think of my audience. Like I recently make a like three channel expanded cinema, and it's called False Expectations. And I do think of when I added the three channel, and I do think of, okay, what would surprise people. So that's
Yeah, that's good. And so McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness, like knife and fork extends our teeth, shutter in a camera extends our eyelid. Maybe even non-tangible, say religion or philosophy, extends consciousness. What does the moving image camera extend for you? What humanness does it extend for you?
Well, it really help you. It's like, because when you don't have a camera, your gaze only exists in your head. But then when you have a camera, you can project that gaze.
Oh, that's heavy. So it's the projection of the inner gaze or just the gaze? Yeah.
I think it's both.
Both. Yeah. Yeah, because McLuhan had a great line. Most people, or a lot of people, say, what does the movie camera extend? They'll go, well, your eye or your memory. And he said it extends your foot because you're traveling.
That's true too. That's true too. Isn't that was I forgot the writer, but then essence of cinema. It's the essence of they wrote about Sean Apton. They wrote about like essence of cinema is when time and space are changing. So
Are changing. Yeah.
yeah, I'm really bad for the quote, but I'll
No,
email
that's all
you.
right. No, when you remember, send me an email with Sean's
I will.
name. Yeah, that's good. I
Yeah.
like that because I'm always saying that because Peter Greenaway, have you ever
Mm.
seen his films?
Mhm.
He's really good. And, you know, he's sort of kicked over from being experimental into being kind of mainstream art film. And he said cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. And are experimental filmmakers telling a story a different way or doing something completely different? Because of me and you watch Tony Conrad's The Flicker, which is just black and white flickering on and off for 15 minutes. We could have a story go through our head, but it isn't storytelling per se. So are experimental filmmakers telling stories in a different way, or are they doing something different?
Well, you want to go back to, I don't know, maybe 20s, 30s with German Dulag with the pure, the whole pure cinema theory. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, are we telling story like a replicate for theater? Maybe not. Or yes, we can do that, but we don't have to do that. So are we telling story? And then it's coming back to, okay, what is the essence of story? Is it that it have to have a plot, characters, or it give you a sense of sensation that is different from your your daily life experience. And if that is the case, then I am telling a story. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting because Andrew Noren said if you put one frame next to another frame, that is narrative. That is story. If it's gobbledygook and abstract, it's still narrative. But you know, Greenaway also said Marty Scorsese is not doing anything different that D.W. Griffith did because all they're doing is filming plays. You brought up the word theater. All they're doing is filming a play. So what if they do a different camera angle or whatever, which is what the Germans were doing early on? I mean, to me, the king of the experimental film really is Abel Gance and Zygmunt Vertov, man with the movie camera. Because Einstein was making films telling story, but Zygmunt Vertov was like all over the place, you know, and doing it, you know, saying it does not have to be reality. But you know, going to the Ann Arbor Film Festival for 60 years, me and you are starting the Ann Arbor Film Festival, time travel back 60 years ago. Should it be more inclusive or more exclusive? Now, you know this because you run a film collective or you help with your film collective and you pick films to show. And so my question is like Chick Strand, one of the pioneers who taught Betsy and all of them, I asked her this and she said, we were trying to, why were you doing these film screenings in San Francisco in the 60s? We were trying to recreate our 11-cent movie going experience where we'd show a newsreel, a cartoon, and then a experimental film. And Brackage came along and says, don't show the other stuff, just show experimental. So in the big picture, should we be more inclusive or more exclusive?
Inclusive, of course, inclusive. We have to be more inclusive because how do I say it? Because you have to be more inclusive too, and that's inspiring because like
Yeah.
I might get an idea from this newsreel, like I might get a random idea from this found footage of this educational film. In fact, like found footage are very inspiring,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good because what are the services? Here's the really punchy question is what are the services and disservices of marginalizing experimental film. Jackson Pollock was on the cover of Life magazine in 1949. Then normal people could start developing an aesthetic for experimental painting. There was no Bruce Conner or Maya Deren on the cover of Life magazine. So generally, it's rich, entitled art kids, kids who have money who dominate experimental film. So what is your thought on that? I mean, it seems, yeah, it seems that you're in the art installation world too. The art world is that too. It's dominated by entitled rich kids.
I think that's very true and very sad. And this is just a conversation I had with a group of friends yesterday too. We went to a school's art program's open studio, and we're just thinking, how a lot of this work you can make like outside of the school studio, but they're still great. They didn't make them last, like powerful. But then once you're in the school and this curated content, you are getting the attention. And that's kind of really sad because, like, okay, so we pay to get attention, and then when we're out of the school, and then we're trying to survive to pay our student loan. It's really sad. So we didn't have a solution last night, but we're just coming to this. We all, like, four of us are graduate from our school, and be like, yeah, we don't know. But I think though, that's why grassroots organization is so important.
Yeah.
It's like, they hosting a lot of work. You're hosting a lot of workshop, and then at an affordable rate, or But I mean, and on the same time, that organization need to survive, and then while the federal funding is, it's withdrawing, which is crazy. But grassroots organization, yeah, hosting workshop, and then there were like people that like us that were coming from our school that, yes, we got the attention, and I'm promoting this great art that coming from my workshop, and you should stay with me, that kind of chain effect. I'm hoping that's, I don't know, I might probably naive, but I feel like sometimes feel a little bit hopeful that thinking that way.
It's good though. At least you can talk about it. I gave a lecture at Cal Arts once on Pixel Vision, the toy camera film festival. And the 100 students were so attentive. And then doing Q&A, this one woman in the front row goes, "How do you make your living?" Like just what I asked you at the beginning. What's your day job? And I says, "I do nothing effectively." And all the kids cracked up and laughed. And she gave me the evil eye, like, "Dude, you're fucking bullshitting with me. You got to tell," she really caught me, because it is a sad thing that art is a commodity. But, in that you guys got kind of tricked. You go to art school and then you go, "But you better get your day job too, because you got to pay for your loan and you got to pay for your room and board and all that."
Yeah.
But McLuhan said another thing in this regard, because you have these screenings and have really created a community of grassroots friends. That's what it basically is. He said there's no such thing as a good or bad film. It's a good or bad viewing experience. Any comment on that?
I think it's partially true, but I feel like there are still films that, if they're driven by evil, I wouldn't really encourage that.
Yeah.
But one thing I kind of want to respond to you earlier about the commodity art, and, like, artists having day job and thing. So my father has a very good friend. She's a great calligrapher, like ink painting painter, and then and her day job is actually she managing a cleaning service. So, and then she told my dad that holding a paintbrush and holding a sweeping broom, it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
No, that's also like some great artist become like a janitor. So they do a job during the day that doesn't drain their creative spirit. Then they can go home and create their spirit at home. Because, you know, I've interviewed 100 experimental filmmakers, and none of them can make a living being an experimental filmmaker. I mean, Phil Solomon's line was the best. He goes, I'm a professional experimental filmmaker. And I goes, yeah, right. You teach and you got shown at Sundance once. Big deal. You know? But it is. You have a good sense of humor of this. This is cool. Thank you, Erica. Because this is Michael Abted. I spoke with him 40 years ago. You know, he made 28 and Up and Coal Miner's Daughter, and he made a doc on a Russian rock star. And I says, this when MTV was around, I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? And most people don't know. Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it flourished in the 80s with MTV and rock videos to the point where Marty Scorsese said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. So I says, you know, why do you know, can we take in information faster? That's my question. Is basically, he says, because we can take in information faster. So I ask this with a bias, can we literally take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Can we take information faster? I feel like are we taking it, or are we like being fed though?
Yeah.
So you definitely can be fed. You could definitely can be cram of like, you know, cram of something. And I think those definitely have effects on you. But are we actually having information? Are actually understanding the information as in we take the information? I don't think so. I think you're like you get familiar with something doesn't mean that you learn something.
Well, that's really interesting, because I would say your generation, most people say, yeah, we've learned to take in information faster. It's like Evelyn Wood's speed reading. They says, oh, you can learn to read faster. But really the hidden question is, can humans literally multitask?
You can do one thing at a time in a very fast pace, and it looks like it's multitasking.
You are one smart woman, man. That is great.
But that's what I am. I'm multitasking all the time, but it's more like I do this for 2 steps and then go to do another thing for 2 steps, you know.
Right. Because one time I was interviewing this really smart woman, and I says, can humans multitask? She goes, yeah, I've been checking my email the whole time you're in. And I could tell, because you know how you can tell how people's eyes are looking. And I was like, I could tell. And I was sort of insulted, but at least she was being honest. So what do you think the motive of the cave artist was? Your guess or your hunch?
My guess is the motive of a cage artist, I feel like that's a genuine or intuitive expression. I want to say the urge, you know how like when you're happy you want to sing. I think that's not something you would talk to. You know, you naturally were that way, and then the way you want to move your body the same too.
Yeah, that's really good, to sing or dance naturally, but you can go to a club and do it. But that's McLuhan's favorite line was, the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Yeah,
and that's
really that.
That's good. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Conviction? Or what do you mean by conviction?
Conviction is you're dedicated to something full blast. Compromise is you'll give and take a little.
And your question is, what's more important for me?
Yeah, what's more important, being convicted to something, or, you know, give or take a little?
I feel like intuitively I'm convicting all the time, but so that's why compromising is important for me, that I have to learn that.
Yeah. And you've accomplished a lot. How do you rate these 3 elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
I want to say luck and skill probably it's like pretty equal, or sometimes
Yeah,
luck better, sometimes skill better, and ambition. I feel like they are a triangle. You can rank them.
yeah,
They really interact. Interdependent to each
yeah.
other.
Really good. I used to ask it, is ambition based more on fear or joy? Most people would say
Ooh.
fear, but
Mm-hmm.
people who are positive like joy. And
Mm-hmm.
then Friedkin, the guy who directed The Exorcist, he said,
Mm.
in Hollywood, luck and skill have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition.
Mm. Hmm. I'm curious though, because like I feel like luck is so important in Hollywood too.
Oh,
You
it
know.
is. Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's a triangle. And I mean, it's even beyond that triangle, because when I ask people that and I give them those three, they go, what about purpose, destiny, persistence? There's many more.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
yeah. T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Mm, my inner dialogue I think it's pretty poetic too.
It's pretty what?
I think it's pretty poetic too. Like it
Oh,
doesn't
you mean
poetic
poetic,
poetry.
Poetic, poetic.
Hmm.
That's major. That's my, because I always say in experimental film reviews, they go, that short was poetic. And it's like they never say, oh, that film was, that poem was cinematic. You know,
Well,
good.
I say that all the time. I said this art installation is very cinematic all the time.
Yeah. So two of my film heroes have this mantra: ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression, or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and cultures are dominant?
I think both. And I want to jump back to I'm not sure I agree with Jonas because saying his work is not self-expression, because it's very self-expressing.
Hello.
Like diary film is not self-expressing. I'm not sure I agree. And I do make diary film, really I started making like experimental film when I was in New York, and it is like a huge influence. So it is very self-expressing.
That's good. See, you're a good listener, Erica, because no one goes back and taps into the three quotes I say before that.
Well, it's
Because,
also sorry.
no, go ahead.
It's also because like a lot of names you mentioned, I'm pretty familiar with their work, so I'm like responding to that too.
Yeah. No, if I just said a filmmaker said, sometimes I have to do that because
Oh
I
yeah,
know the beliefs of the people, and they'll go, if that person said that, I won't even listen to it.
yeah,
But you're good. But really, the hidden question for that question, the hidden one is, can art making be egoless?
yes,
Wow,
totally.
that's good.
And it's
Because
really hard not to be, honestly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because that's the question. Most people go, can art making be egoless? And they go, no. And a woman about a year ago says, great art is egoless.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sad, and it's also the cruel truth, honestly.
Yeah.
It, yeah, and honestly, I want to say a lot of like how to say like the word you use commodity, like like selling art is like the best selling arts are the egoist art,
Yeah.
sadly. So and that I don't know, I'm worried about that, the culture that it built, and I mean it already built. But
I got that from David James. You know him. He
mm,
taught experimental film at USC for years and he's written many great books. And he's a peer of Betsy's and all. He's
Mm,
really good. And he came up with that term commodity cinema.
mhm,
And this is Paul Schrader, the guy who wrote Taxi Driver. He said, the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. Now,
wow.
you laugh. That's funny. And most artists kind of laugh and they go, wow. And to me, that has a double meaning. It sort of sounds cool, but it
Mhm,
also is like, yeah, you're claiming your art is so pure, even when you try to sell out, it didn't sell. So it's
mhm,
like, come on, give me a break, because it's not bad if you sell. When we saw, the film Koyaanisqatsi.
mm-mm,
Oh, you got to see it, because it's like the first big film that all the experimental filmmakers were seeing that got in a popcorn movie theater and was
mm,
sold as a, it's sort of like what David Lynch started making films that got, popular. It had some elements of experimental in it, you know.
mm,
But Koyaanisqatsi is kind of like the first feature film really that got in normal Hollywood movie theaters.
mm.
And when we saw it, we went, we've seen this in Ann Arbor for the last 20, 30 years. Hillary Harris did it all, did the same technique for years. But he got it in, he snuck it into a popcorn theater, And then
Right.
eventually, guess how he made his money? Reggio, Reggio. He sold his footage for stock footage. So then every FedEx commercial on TV had that sped up clouds, moving pixelated, and people in subways moving really fast. That was like, oh yeah, you just got your outtakes from Reggio, so he didn't have to have a day job in the normal way, like you work in the filmmaking industry. So it does happen. It's funny. So
But I'm curious though, because this is something I talked to a friend. It's like if it's just end of the day, you're deciding if you're selling your soul,
yeah,
you know. So
right.
and I guess different people have different choices, and then other people can be like jealous and bitter and like angry about it because it doesn't align with our value. And but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, are you prioritizing? Are you abandoning your community that kind of build your art from, or are you,
Yeah.
you want to stay with that value, and
Yeah, no, that's
open?
your selling your soul. That's sold out. It's spelled SOUL apostrophe
So
sold out. It can be because the
your
great
film sold out and sold
yeah.
out.
Yeah. But that's Reverend Al, he published the punk magazine in LA for many years called Flipside. His line is, don't sell out, sneak in.
Right. Right.
So that that's what Reggio did with Koyaanisqatsi. He kind of snuck in, you
Yeah,
know.
he's knocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I
what's
mean, sorry.
no,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
eventually, all the mainstream is gonna like absorb or everything from the underground scene.
Exactly. I mean,
So it,
we know Stanley Kubrick studied Jordan Belson. We know this. He admits it. So we know it. In I could go on and on. I have a whole lecture on that whole thing. But
mm,
it is like, then is it that's like my question I didn't ask you, I skipped over, is filmmaking been swindled by capitalism? Well, everything's been swindled by capitalism. But in Craig Baldwin said it best. He says, "Yeah, it's our job to swindle it back." And I'm like, I don't want to become my enemy. You know, I mean, brought up Jonas Mekas. At the end of his life, he became a cult hero, and they were selling Jonas Mekas T-shirts and stuff. So
yeah.
whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
so is perception reality?
It's perception, reality. Ah, wow, that's just very big question, and you can trace. I mean, I'm immediately thinking about some Buddhism, like I don't know, philosophy on it. It's like, okay, everything is this illusion, everything is illusion, but I do think, okay, but I want to take it back from your very more tangible, like our daily life is like, it's perspective reality. I think it's not necessary, but it can be, because and then you can fact check that, by, I don't know, by reality tracking.
Yeah. No,
So
that's good. So tell me one major element, Erica, of your filmmaking, experimental filmmaking, that stayed the same, and one major element that's changed since you started making
ooh,
experimental films.
something that's still remain very important is counting. Like not counting, not necessarily number, but or some like rhythm or tempo. That's something never changed. And something changed majorly was start to think of color. Honestly, this 2 3 years, and then start to think of sound after going to school. I have to go to cards, and I would give credit to Betsy of like, because I went to cards with a lot of like black and white hand processing film, and then was I remember in the middle of my school years and a meeting with Betsy, she's like, yeah, it's like you're seeing color now. And then also it really was in her class that I started to work a lot with sound for my film.
Yeah. Because I did appreciate that some of your films were silent. It's so rare people make silent films. But like Thelonious Monk said, silence is the loudest sound in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it is important to not, because we are so brainwashed to believe you have to have sound to every film,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Oh, this is something I was talking to somebody yesterday. It's how I kind of I think I grew up being taught to be very independent and to become hyper independent. And I actually I have a great problem of displaying my vulnerability. And somehow it probably leads to how people would have hard time reading me because I'm like strong anyway. So I feel like this answer your question in a weird way, that okay, I think my strength, I do have a lot of power. I have strength. My strength is my weakness. Actually, this is a weakness that I cannot. It's hard for me to display my vulnerability.
Yeah, that's great. What's another word for vulnerability?
Vulnerability. Let me think. I want to think of vulnerability. Softness
Yeah,
and openness.
that's good. You remind me of the word jujitsu or
Mm,
judo. Jujitsu etymologically breaks down to art and science, soft and gentle.
mm.
So weird. It's amazing because that is what's the difference between art and science?
What different between art can be like science or facts, and art doesn't need to be a fact.
Yeah. Jean Cocteau said, art is silence made clear, science made clear.
Science made clear.
Yeah.
Science made clear. Interesting. Well, I
Yeah.
guess. Well, I feel like okay. Yeah, art doesn't have to be fact, but it can be truth or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Well, truth is a great word too, because Louis Buñuel said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it.
Power is Wait, say that again. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it.
Ooh, I love it. I feel like that's how I read too.
Yeah. Um, Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion
When anger can be a productive emotion when a collective are doing it for good.
what's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Hmm. It's so hard for it to answer this in the okay. This is my one of my major frustration of living life is how I think we're in a generation of like thinking about like try to break binary gender
Yeah.
while we're still fighting for all those old baggage. It's like at the workplace, I'm one of the few women in my team, and anyway, I will still have to like fight for I don't know like very basic things, very things, and then while like in my community that we're talking about trans, we're talking about non-binary, so it's frustrated to think of that. So to think of like what's difference between men and women because like I don't want to think that way.
Right.
Yeah,
But it is sad that
but yes.
women make less money. So if you make an issue of it, then you're causing the issue to become more resonant almost. Because see, when Me Too movement started, I couldn't ask that question. People would go, I won't go there because they would just
Mm,
say I'll get in trouble. But now people are more willing to do it. But the cliche is, oh, women are emotional and men are linear. But it's like how it's very difficult. And so it goes
yeah.
along with this. You create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait morphed that saying into you are what you hate. And Louis
Mm,
Buñuel said, thank God I'm an atheist. So I mean, basically, I'm just curious your thoughts on this line, you create what you resist. Not you, Erica, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on
mhm.
that line?
One create what one resist. Um, create or I wonder if it's you create what resist. I don't know why I'm immediately thinking of like one like naturally resist what they see in themselves that they don't like. So
Yeah.
does it make sense?
Yeah. But how do you find peace of mind?
How do you find peace of mind? That's something I struggle a lot with. How do I find peace of mind? My friend would ask me like, "What do you do for relaxing outside of movie and art?" I was like, "I don't know." Yeah.
It's good that you can laugh about it though. That's partly it. It's like when you're laughing, you're learning, you know,
Yeah.
and and it is this whole time is you haven't you've taken our time together seriously, but you at the same time seem to have a good sense of humor.
Thank
So
you.
that's important, I think. And that's one thing that's I'm think sad in the experimental film world is it lacks sense of humor. It seems to be it's too serious sometimes.
I mean, it's like if your life is like if you're like worrying about how do I, where's my next meal, you're not gonna be happy.
Yeah,
And this is for any like occupations like artist or technician or worker of all
yeah,
kinds. So
yeah. So these are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words. 1, who started it all?
who started it out? I don't know.
2, are we going to make it?
Are we going to make it? Yes.
3, where do we put it?
Where do we put it? Uh, as far as we go.
4, who's cleaning it up?
We will clean it up.
5, is it serious?
Is it serious? It doesn't have to be.
Very good. So where'd you get your sense of humor? Was that through your mom and dad there, or did you get it on your own?
My dad is pretty funny. My family is pretty funny somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
My
That's
dad likes to crack joke all the time. That's
yeah,
what they said. Yeah.
yeah. But is that in your culture or is it different for your culture?
Is that in my culture? I think it's different from my culture. Sometimes I feel like I feel like in Taiwan I can be I think no, I think Taiwanese can be humor but bitter. I think my bias is that us Taiwanese can be a little bitter and sarcastic. But so I don't know. And my sense of humor, I don't know. I actually don't know.
What year did you come to America?
Well, so I was born
Or I
here
mean,
in
what age? What age did you come?
um well I was born here and lived 96 and then come back again on my own when I'm 23,
Oh,
23,
23.
24. Yeah,
So from you
23.
basically were raised there, but you came here. And
Mm-hmm.
your parents stayed there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So do you go back often?
Yeah, probably like annually, mostly annually. Yeah.
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 If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
My 12-year-old self. I wouldn't really talk to her, honestly. I would just let her be.
That is good. No one ever says that. Just let her be.
Just let her. Why would you want to talk to her? She has her own life, and
Great, great answer, Erica. I hardly ever get that answer. So if a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what title would it be?
I kept explaining myself.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Ooh, it had to be like a natural, like that kind of old school glue smell that they come from a jar. That kind of.
Yeah,
It had to be old fashioned in that way.
yeah. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Oh, it would be very little and like a little. It would be very little, like just like the figure I collected, and just be gonna be on my bookshelf.
Oh, nice. You're good at this. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
I never had, I never want. Oh my God, this could be really related to my recent experience. I just ended a relationship who with someone who like took care of everything of his former partner, and that's something that I never would have, but and I never wanted anymore.
Yeah. Wow. Because that goes to archiving. I'm doing a research project on archiving. And the word etymologically breaks down to a record preserved as evidence,
Mm.
1600s. But Charles Baudelaire, the French poet, said, if you try to make a statement long, deep, and rich, it will age very fast. If you try to own the day you're talking, it will last forever. So
Mm.
isn't the point of life is to be here now, be present? Why do we have to save stuff in like archives? Of course, I know about history. I go to a library every day. I love it, but I also love that the futurist art movement said burn all libraries and museums.
Mm.
Wyndham Lewis said artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. Is this need or want to archive more innate or more invented?
Hmm. I want to say okay, but like let's go back to like when humans start to like write things down on the sand and then to the wood and then to paper, So it is invented, but invented based on the need, and the need can be innate of okay, we need this information for more convenience to navigate life in some way to communicate. So I want to say it's invented. Mm.
That's beautiful. You really broke it down well because I'm curious if you have plans for your own archives.
This is something that I'm actually this is the plan for this year. That is I want to. That's oh my God, I'm back to when I was in school, Betsy one time in school would be in class be like, "You are the only person that's in charge of your own archive." And then and that stayed with me for a long time until I think because last year I still worked so much and it's overwhelming and and I feel like for archive for me it's a time for you to organize and to process what happened. So I am actually wanting to do that this year. Yeah.
It's really smart. It's really good to do that.
Yeah.
Um, tell me something good you never had and you never want.
I answered that.
Oh, what did you say? Boy, I'm losing it.
Oh,
Oh, you already said that. I'm sorry. That's what led into the archiving. Oh, yeah. Please. What's the healthiest cultural shift you see developing today? Or what's a cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
A cultural shift, I think. Well, I feel like the therapy culture is it's interesting because well you want to change and then and you want a change but it's more psychologically so you went to a clinic, but I do see people who went to a clinic and stay, or maybe they're taking a very slow time, but they stay in that kind of situation that they were, and then there's a lot of like internet, like I guess this is my on my algorithm recently, but everybody's talking about like therapy, which is coming back to the title of our podcast is like you're admitting something's wrong, and then this is a place actually for you to admit you were wrong or to understanding what's going on
Yeah.
and then make a change
No, that's
if you
good
can.
because we have a Carl Jung reading club, and I know a little about Jung, but it's just fun because it's like a group therapy session, and it's just all of us talking about ideas that he brought up, whether you think he's right or wrong. But he talks about the shadow and how do you incorporate back to that thing, which I
Mm-hmm.
learned from Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce via McLuhan, was how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? How do you turn a rejection into a redirection? Like if you
Right.
can recognize something, then how do you process it?
Right, and it's also a lot of like information. There's because like there's studies and researches going on. Like there's always new information of things, and like recently I was suggested to read a book called Running on Empty, and it's about like emotional neglect or childhood emotional neglect. And then I started listening to the book, and they're actually talking about how this is something that they discovered that like it feels like a new thing that the in the therapy world they were talking about. And so like and then and then with the new information, then you're going back to, oh, because my parents, like when they raised me, they didn't, or their parents when they raised me, they don't have that kind of information. But now I am an adult, I'm actively choosing to learn about this and to have compassion for myself and for the older generations. So there's something, I think this is something new.
Dude,
That's
it
good.
was amazing because I was reading your website and it's so well done and articulate.
Oh,
But
thank you.
somewhere you brought up the word self-care.
Oh.
So there's some either a review or something, the word self-care.
Uh-huh.
Yesterday, the guy I had on my podcast brought that up as an important thing. And I was like, wow, this is resonating from one person to the next, self-care. And of course, we want to take care of fellow people in our community and know that being kind is good, and let's move the project forward. But
Mhm.
self-care is an important thing. So that was really good because Utah Phillips said anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's
Mhm.
entitled to make the rules?
Well, that's interesting from the quote though, because like we're talking about like anarchy, because anarchy essentially you want to lose control. And then this is coming back to like, for take example of like when you're setting boundary, It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I tell you you cannot do this, but it comes from, if you do this, I'm going to do that. So it's like, if I tell you what to do, that's controlling. If I'm telling you, okay, this is my boundary. If you do that, I'm gonna do that. And
Yeah.
so, so who set the rule? Yeah, I am, like, I should be the person that's setting my own rule. So
Really
and
good, because check this out. The word freedom etymologically breaks down to exactly what Utah said: giving oneself one's own laws. So what does freedom mean to you now?
freedom mean to me now is, it's definitely losing some of the freedom. Means that I can have my own structure of my life, my daily life. And that means I can wake up and then come to my desk and then do my art stuff, instead of like running through my door and drive to my office and sit at a desk at a certain time of the day. But
Yeah. We just have a few more. I really appreciate your time here, Erica. Really fun.
thank you.
Okay, so a couple more and we're out of here. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
What's a question that remain unresolved for me? I think recently though, well, okay. Yeah, I think like what is reality, what is true, is something still very confusing to me.
Yeah.
Like the way I've navigated my life, and then when I encounter challenges and I'd be like, so what, how I did it was all wrong, or something I'm missing. I think that's something still very confusing.
Yeah, Lily Tomlin has a great line. She goes, reality is just a collective hunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we all kind of think we know what reality is.
And then someone else would give you a perspective and be like, oh, well, actually,
Yeah. How has making experimental films shaped your behavior?
Sometimes I think in filmmaking way, like how, how you were talking about one photo and another photo, from a very basic, editing style. And then I do think, I feel like I would perceive the world that way too, from one image to another image.
Yeah, it's in.
And
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think it's an, I don't know which is egg, which is chicken, I don't know which comes first, but I do think that the kind of rhythm that I kind of live in my body, that in my film, those, it's really like they're really like interconnected. And I don't know if my film, because I film it and then I edit it, so and then create another rhythm. I don't know that which rhythm comes first. Is it my inherited rhythm body or the film's body? And I do think they're interconnected.
Yeah, it's like a Mobius strip or a snake eating its tail.
Mm-hmm.
The favorite moment watching your films for me was those, you do that split screen thing, sort of like we're set up here with Zoom. There's two screens, but one of them said a film by Erica, and then the other one said a film by ? I've never seen I never seen that in a film, and I went, that is a great title.
Right, like which identity you're playing or who's talking through me,
That's it. Dante prayed to the muse to, that's like David Mamet said, art is made in the unconscious mind. But it is back to you being able to say art making can be egoless. There's people who don't want to identify that they made their art. I mean, Bruce Conner, one of the greatest experimental filmmakers ever, he didn't want to sign his art. And his gallery owner says, no, you got to sign. He goes, no, I don't want to. He said,
Right.
just sign Dennis Hopper's name. And he did. And then Dennis Hopper was like proud because because Bruce Conner got to be so famous.
That's so funny. Yeah, I would love to not sign some of my work, but then if I did that, I might lose the contact with my audience, and I'm curious what people interact with my work. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but I do. Oh yeah,
that's the
I
beauty.
yeah.
Well, the beauty you've done is you've not only a maker, but it seems as though you put a lot of energy into your film collective
Mm, yeah.
in being with a group of people and a community and,
I know. You need friends in your life.
yeah, that's it. Okay, two more and we're done. So this is Thornton Wilder. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
For me, okay, I want to say another quote from. So Suji Terayama also had a similar quote that, like, my intention is to hide things, and then for me, it's really finding a safe place,
Yeah,
and or creating a safe space, and then by creating a safe place for me at this point of my life is still try to hide stuff while revealing it.
yeah.
And so that's why I kind of recently I'm kind of started make a lot of little books and eventually hoping to have like an artist book. It's I secretly think that because people don't read,
Yeah.
and that's a space for me to hide, but then also I'll make art, and then for people who really willing to enter that world, so
Creating a safe place through little books is such a great idea. That is beautiful.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What gives you the most optimism?
What gives me the most optimism is, I don't know if this is really giving me optimism or is it temporary, but like talking to someone you care that is, struggling or like cares things that you care, sometimes you collectively think of a solution or not think of a solution, but that feels hopeful.
Yeah. It's beautiful because the first question I ask is, what is the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being.
Mm,
The last question I ask is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. And it's sort of like what you've stressed at the beginning and the end, that it's other people. And so, sharing this time with another person, especially because it was you, Erica, was really special. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Yeah. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If it's meaningful, it's gonna last.
Thank you.
Bye.